I'm trying to figure this out. I'm sick of it. For practices, we've had really diligent meetings.
Colorado is nothing. They don't matter. They're irrelevant in the big picture of college football.
And so here we go again, back with another one. Welcome back to the Dark Times channel. And before I get started, make sure you guys go ahead and hit that like button for me. And if you're not new to the channel, you know the drill. Go ahead and press that subscribe button if you enjoy the content. And so let's go ahead and dive right in. This isn't going to be too long, but I had to go ahead and take a second to chime in on this one. It's not even midseason. It's not even preseason in college football. And the Deion hate has already begun.
First, how likely is Deion to get Colorado eventually to a college football playoff?
Well, I'm glad you said the word eventually, because it's going to take a while. It's certainly not going to happen this year. This year, they're not even a contender, in my opinion, for the Big 12 conference because they've got so many issues. And I think it's going to take a while because let's start with the transfer portal. 41 players in, I want to say, more than any other team in the FBS. 53 players out. Look, how are you developing chemistry within your team, within your locker room, when you have that much of just disarray in terms of your roster? And then you've got the on-field issues, right? 52 sacks on Deion Sanders, 124th in the nation in scoring defense. I mean, there are real issues on both sides of the ball that they have to fix. And to me, that just doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah, let me piggyback on that for a second. Anyone asking whether Deion Sanders and Colorado are close to the playoffs simply doesn't understand the reality of the road. They're not going to the playoffs this year, and I'm not sure Deion Sanders is ever going to get them to the playoffs because I don't think he has the patience to stay at Colorado long enough. There's so many misconceptions out there. Deion Sanders is the best salesman I've ever seen. I personally love the guy and for what he stands for. But the program looking out has a ridiculously inflated view of itself. I heard Deion Sanders, who's a fabulous quarterback, say last week, "We are everyone's Super Bowl." Deion, you are not. You are an easy win nowadays. You got off to a phenomenal start last year, beating a couple of mediocre teams that had big names. And quite frankly, you haven't done anything since other than crash and burn. So I know that the media loves this story. We fall all over ourselves. But Colorado isn't important in college football. Deion Sanders is. He's a standalone person. He's one of the most charismatic people we've ever seen. But Colorado is nothing. They don't matter. They're irrelevant in the big picture.
And so this is a ridiculous take by Paul Finebaum. Of course, Colorado matters. They're still box office.
They get them to the college football playoff. Now, to address some of that ether that Paul Finebaum just directed at Deion Sanders, Colorado is everybody's Super Bowl. The reason that they are the Super Bowl is because all eyes are on them. I still remember Dan Lanning telling his locker room that Colorado was there for clicks and they're there for wins.
You're talking your helmet, right? Every moment. The Cinderella story is over, man. Right? They're fighting for clicks, we're fighting for wins. There's a difference, right? There's a difference, right? This game ain't gonna be played in Hollywood, it's gonna be played on the grass, right? It's gonna be played on the grass. I hope all those people that have been watching every week are watching this week.
I think they are.
Right? They knew that they went out there with a vengeance and they did blow them out. But they played harder in that game than they played in any other game of the season. So if Shedeur in his mind is saying, hey, Colorado is everyone's Super Bowl because they think they're so great, I can kind of see where Paul is going. But he's saying in the sense of everyone wants to beat them into the ground because they do have the number one quarterback in the nation. And they do have the number one wide receiver and cornerback in the nation in Travis Hunter. And they do have the biggest personality at the head coach position in Deion Sanders. So Paul, yes, people do know Deion, but it's also because he is a great coach and he's a Hall of Fame corner. But you know his players, and what he is doing in the portal is bringing in guys that have a like mindset to him and what he wants to accomplish. He is trying to find the right guys from the past 10 years of terrible recruiting that Colorado has had. And I believe if he can get Colorado to the college football playoff, it will be a great thing for college football. not just for the eyes, but also being able to take a program and take them to new heights. Colorado has not won a conference championship since before Shedeur Sanders was born. They are relevant in this space. Will they win 9, 10, 11 games? I don't know. But I'm not going to try to kick them while they're down at 4-8. If they win purely 6 games this year, I call that a success.
And so RG3 was right on the money. And shout out to RG3 for checking Paul Finebaum. And Paul Finebaum has somewhat of a checkered history and a checkered past as it pertains to the so-called black community.
Same side of those politics does not mean that they are any less extreme or offensive to some people. And when you call the president of the United States, quote, the enemy, and that is a part that Hank Williams Jr. never fell back from, then we do have a problem.
So I don't need Dave Zirin or Bomani Jones lecturing me on my background and my culture. I live in the South and I'm proud of it. And I happened to go to a concert a couple of weeks ago that raised $3 million for people in this state who lost everything in a tornado. And Darius Rucker was there. He happens to be an African-American. You know that, Bomani. And I'm just sick and tired of people from elsewhere, whether they're in Charlotte or anywhere else, making fun of people down here. These are good people. They're not racist. They're not bigots. They just happen to like country music.
Excuse me.
And then you start hiding behind all these elitist attitudes, which people from the South are sick of, okay?
Paul, let me jump in with a question for you.
As Southern as you are.
Ridiculous. Paul, when you have him on making that statement,
thing has to stop.
Obviously, from...
Well, Shay, let's see if Stephen A. Smith and The Rock and every other important entertainment figure in the world shows up this year. My guess is they won't, because it's not the in thing to do. Last year it was, and by the way, I was as guilty as you were. We obsessed over Deion, but this year it's a totally different situation. They're in a different league. They're not on Broadway any longer, and I'm frankly a whole lot more interested in what Texas is doing, and Georgia, and Oregon, and Washington, and Ohio State than I am about a mediocre program out in the middle of nowhere.
Go ahead, Robert.
So, Paul, you thought that last year when Deion went to a team that was utterly the worst team in all of college football, you were interested in them then. But now they win 4 games, which is more games than they won the previous year. They have the potential number one pick in the draft and the potential number 2 pick in the draft, and you're not as interested in them this year? I think there's a lot of people out there who want Deion to lose. Shay, when you said you don't understand what he's saying, how he's judged by different metrics, he's basically saying that he can't go out there and win 10 games, but his programs is in the mud or in the gutter when it comes to everything else he's trying to build. He's trying to build men. I don't care if he wins 4 games again this year. I believe in what he is, the foundation that he is trying to lay in these guys' lives. And to say that he is irrelevant is probably one of the worst takes I've heard today.
And so shout out to RG3 on this segment for holding it down. Now, RG3, I'll say this about RG3. He's been a little iffy when it comes to certain subjects and certain topics. But I'll say this, as pertains to Deion Sanders, I think he's been pretty fair as far as it pertains to Deion Sanders in Colorado.
Don't care about that. Coach Prime is coaching his team. He doesn't want the kid that just wants the bag. He wants the kid that wants to get better. He is making college football adjust to him. Coach Prime is not a spectacle, ladies and gentlemen. He is primed to win.
And Paul Finebaum is a lot like a lot of other analysts out here. You can tell that he doesn't want Deion Sanders to win. He doesn't want Colorado to win. And it's personal to him. It's personal because if Deion Sanders succeeds on any level, it might change the ball game just a little bit, because Deion Sanders isn't somebody that came up through these traditional coaching trees or anything like that. He didn't grind his way, and he wasn't an assistant for 30 years before he got his first opportunity. And so if Deion Sanders can prove that he can win without having to work 20 and 30 years to hopefully get a chance to be a head coach, this might open up the doors. This might change things just a little bit. And I think a lot of people are afraid for their jobs. But that's all I had on this one. You guys go ahead and chime in the comments section below. Let's try to go ahead and keep the conversation going. And as usual, peace and chaos.